Hey everyone, great to see you. Nice to be back at the front and nice to spend time just explaining God's Word. Again, real privilege. Our new series is called Leisure. It's a thematic series. That's just to say that sometimes we pick texts out of the Bible and we preach through the text that we're looking at. With a thematic series, you just work through a theme, work through an idea. And we're going to start in Genesis. And as it happens, we're going to finish in Revelation, and we're going to follow the story of leisure all the way through the Bible. And you might well be thinking, I've not thought about that before. Is that even in the Bible? When I told somebody about it, they said quite bluntly to me, it sounds a bit wet. It sounds a bit, of an incidental thing. Leisure's just what we happen to do. There's nothing that I need to be overly concerned about. There's nothing like, you've told me it's going to be about leisure. Does that mean I can just switch off? I know what leisure is. It's just relaxing and having a good time. I hope you can relax and have a good time. So what I want to start by doing is just making an argument, a bit of an argument, not an aggressive one, just a logical one as to why you might think that it's something you should think about. Leisure. So I've tried to come up with a definition. So you can chat GPT it or you can Google it. You can chat GPT everything. I've just started using chat GPT. It's very lovely. It's so understanding when you just keep nagging. Have you found that? Just keep asking ridiculous questions and it's always encouraging. Yeah, I can help you with that. Anyway, this is just my own work. This is not chat GPT. Although the bots are everywhere, I'm sure there's some kind of influence. So a definition of leisure, and what I want you to think about is this, have I experienced this? Have I had this? Do I want to have this? Should I have this? And maybe even come up with your own definition of leisure. It's just a working one. And there's Paul and Joe and others preaching, so maybe we'll add to this as we go through. Leisure is being far enough from worry, necessity, and rush to be content, present, contemplative, creative, and this next one is where I realize I'm not getting enough leisure, fun, and restored. Leisure, working definition, is being far enough from worry, necessity, and rush to be content, present, in the moment. Do you get moments like that when you just feel like the universe has stopped and you're able to enjoy the tree that's in front of your eyes? Contemplative, creative, when you're able to look at the world and be creative. One of the words that's come into my head as I've looked through this, is this idea of recreation, digging around at what that actually means. It's got biblical origins, this idea of not just this, I think immediately of Parks and Recreation, if you've seen that, but there's this idea of recreation. It's a biblical idea. We are being remade. What is it to be remade? And we are to be fun, and we are to be restored. The Greeks got a word for everything. They called it shol, S-C-H-O-L-E, and it's where we get our word school from. So it's got this idea that you contemplate things, you work through things, and at the end of that time, this is how the Greeks viewed the idea of leisure, it was like a privilege. Like how we probably should think about school. It's a privilege. It's a great thing. We get to go and learn and reflect and come out the other end with an education. The Greeks, the idea of the word leisure finds some origin in this Greek idea that we are in a privileged enough position, and that's, I guess, what leisure is. We've not always had leisure time, maybe got more now, that we can maximize it like we would do at school and use it to its best. So here's the argument as to why we should really be interested, and leisure matters more than you think. So the first thing I want to say is your leisure time is something that is fought for. We've never had more leisure time. We've got inventions for everything, which mean that we can have more leisure time. We've never, historically, I don't know when leisure started to happen. I guess it's always been there to different degrees, more for the privileged than for the many. But in the last 50 years, maybe we've got more leisure time. Yet we've never had, and just think about this, we've never had to fight so hard to really appreciate the leisure time that we've got. We've never had more of it, And my argument to you would be we've never had to fight so hard, and fight is the word I'd use, to really appreciate leisure. Work demands, and what I would say is the speed of life just break constantly. This is definitely me, and I'm sure it's you with the pressure of life and the speed of life, just tear into our leisure time. And they don't just tear into the leisure time itself. I think today's real struggle, the contemporary struggle with leisure, is the tear into the quality of that leisure time. We can always have our gadgets and our phones nearby us, and work can be, I mean, it'd be bad if we didn't have phones. I think we could consume our heads with work if we wanted to, but we've got our phones. We can always be a little bit at work. And so we can have loads of leisure time, and yet it feels to me anyway, like that is a wrestle. To really be present, to really be contemplative, to be fun. My kids will sometimes say, holiday daddy's fun dad. Just a couple of days in the middle and I'm fun, because I'm at leisure. So that's the first thing. It's something we have to fight for. The quality of it is something we have to fight for. So we should be interested in it. Second thing, I think leisure gets cheapened. We can, if you look at the ideal of what leisure should be, we can sell ourselves really short. I think that's an argument that you can make against culture, perhaps, today. We've got awesome stuff. This is a leisure center, I think, something like that. And it's got loads of amazing things that you can go and do. You can go and bounce on trampolines, ski down slopes, all the rest of it. And it's really, really cool. But the more I think leisure gets monetized in capitalism and kind of hurried along in the rat race, it can lose its depth of quality. It can lose the real meaning of what that leisure is, because we're so invaded all the time, and it's about what we can buy and what we can afford, and we ain't got time for it anyway. And one of my reflections as I've thought about leisure, and it's definitely true for me, so just see if it's true for you, is it can just become about recovery for work or distraction from life. So when I'm talking about cheapening leisure, have you ever had that experience where you've just said, just get a holiday just so we can recover, so we can work some more? Or we just need to have this night off just so we can get the energy back to work again. Or life is so busy and so pressured, we just want something that stops us thinking about life. Like, that's all fine, I'm there all the time. One of the things that we're thinking about now is that leisure in God's eyes has got just such grander ideals than that we can cheapen it in the rat race. Leisure is defining for us. It defines who we are. Most things that we have to do, most things in life, a good chunk of our time is filled with stuff we've got to do. Got to go to bed. Got to get up. Got to look after the kids. Wash the car. Got to go to work. And then there is this brief window of leisure that we choose. There's a bit of time. It's bigger for some than for others. And for some of you now working hard, maybe even with kids or that kind of thing, it might be a really, really tiny window. But it is indeed a window to our souls, because we get to choose what we do with this leisure. So when I'm scrolling through funny cats, which happens more than is good for my health, I'm choosing to scroll through funny cats. And the funniest cats are the sneezing cats. Everybody knows this is a common theme. But that's, at the end of my life, there will be a section of time in this window that I have chosen to look at cats. Carl Jung says, "You are what you do, not what you say you do. We are what we spend our time doing. It identifies us. What we choose to do in our leisure time, what we're scrolling through, what we decide to do, this is a big chunk of who we are." I believe our Maker gets to look down and see us, and he says, right, this is who we are. Marcus Mumford said of Mumford & Sons fame, and they've got some really rich lyrics of Mumford & Sons, I think. "In these bodies we will live, in these bodies we will die. Where you invest your life, where you invest your love, rather, you invest your life." Just this real idea that what we choose to do with the moments that we have are deeply reflective about us. And leisure runs right through. This is the biblical argument, that's like the sociological argument. Leisure runs, in my eyes, and with the books I've been reading, it runs right through Genesis to Revelation in the Bible as a Bible idea, this idea of leisure. And you might think, I don't see anybody playing tennis or going to a nightclub or anything like that in the Bible. So kick off, Sabbath. The idea of Sabbath, it's the text that we've looked at. It's where we start, where we end, and that is something that is revealed right the way throughout the Bible. Not just as a day in the week, but as a concept for us, as this idea of God's peace. It's one of the biggest ideas of the Bible. So if you're looking for a Bible study, if you're like, I don't know what to do with the Bible, just see if you can figure out what Sabbath is. So my stab at it would be something like, it is intentional rest. It's a sacred pause. This is ChatGPT, actually. It's a sacred pause to reconnect. Thought that was really good of ChatGPT, whoever's figuring that one out. A sacred pause just to reflect. And this idea that we can just, do you struggle with this, that we can just be? Sabbath has this idea that we would just rest in what God has done in this wonderful world that he's made. So Sabbath is right the way through the Bible. There's also loads of festivals. We go to festivals now, don't we? We have festivals now where you disappear if you're of a certain age, or if you're a bit older and you're just full of life. You go to a festival and you immerse yourself in this festival, and like there's live music and there's whatever else. I'm 46, I'm still desperate to go to Glastonbury. But there's loads of festivals in the Bible, but they're not just where you just go and lose your mind, which can sometimes happen at festivals. The festivals in the Bible, and there's loads of festivals, and the Old Testament and the New Testament pulled together to get us to think about it, are like days and weeks of celebration, but they're not just about distraction, not just about forgetting about reality. If you dig around in them again, if you want a Bible study, they're really meaningful. They're about being refreshed. They're about being contemplative. It's like purposeful partying are the festivals in the Bible. It's like that. It's like, I'm not just going to go and lose myself and get away from it all. And I think that can happen when we go away for camps and things like that, holidays. It can be a really deep, spiritual, moving experience. And that's right the way through the Bible idea, these festivals. And it's full of stories, music. There's more dancing than you would expect in the Bible. I would expect none. The Sunday school teacher I had when I was about 7, I'm pretty sure, could be wrong, said there's no dancing. There's no dancing in Christianity. The Bible is full of dancing, and it's full of eating and drinking. One of the biggest criticisms that came Jesus and his disciples' way was that they were always at leisure. That was a criticism that was bashed around. It became a saying. These guys are always eating and drinking. It's there in the Bible in black and white. And they're always eating and drinking, and they even do it on holy days. They're even at leisure on holy days. Now, what I would say to you about that is, I think this is the culmination of my argument. Jesus embraces leisure, and he gives it meaning and depth. On the face of it, if you look at the text, you see Jesus over and over again. It's the story that we'll look at the end, but there's loads of those stories in the gospel. It looks like he just gets into loads of weird fights about what you do on the Sabbath and what you do with your free time. It looks like they're just quite odd fights looking to us. But what I would say is he doesn't just fall into these fights. They're not just idle incidents. Jesus chooses this fight. He won't drop this. He picks the fights. And we'll see in the text when we get to the end of the gospel, the end of the reading, that this would ultimately be one of the reasons that they would plot to kill him. Leisure, what you do with your spare time, how you understand Sabbath was not a fight that Jesus would drop. It's a big part of what it means to have faith. It's worth, I think, us thinking about. It's worth Jesus fighting for us about. It's a huge topic in the Bible. It is, I think it's fair to say, this is one of the ways I think we could think about it. Tell me after if you think I've got it wrong. It's like a battleground. It's like this subtle battleground of our lives. Think nothing of leisure. Just think of it as an entitlement or whatever, and yet it's a huge battleground for our identity, for our walk with God, for our character. And this is my conviction. God knows that we're made to be content, we're made to be present, we're made to be contemplative, we're made to be creative, we're made to be fun, we're made to be restored. And so Jesus fights for this. There's just two quick things I'm going to, as like an introduction to this text, I'm going to show you. I want us to think about how we can think of leisure as God made it, and what Jesus proves about leisure. How we can think about it as God made it, and what Jesus proves about leisure. So first thing, and it's in the, I don't know if, these are all from the Genesis text. I don't know if it's possible. Just have a look at that, see if you can guess what I'm going to talk about. First thing I want you to remember about leisure is the idea of what it is changes when we realize, or if we try and consider, that God gave it. How we think about leisure and our leisure time will change if we think that God made it. What it feels like to me, and I've verbalized this often, I'll say to Jude and the family, I'm just doing this. It feels like with leisure, I'm just going to have 5 minutes, I'm just going to go for a walk, I'm off to the pub, I'm off to watch Cass. It feels like we've earned it. Do you know what I mean with leisure? That's how it feels. Life is so busy, it feels like we earn it, and it's something that we gain, and we own, we possess the leisure. Or somebody else owns it, and because it's been monetized, we've got to pay them to get a bit of the leisure. That's how it feels like to me. And there's a bit of a reality to that. But I think there's more in God's bigger picture. And I think faith asks us to think really differently about leisure. Different than how it feels. It feels like that. It feels like we earn it, and it's ours, and we have to own it and protect it as much as we can. On the seventh day, God is at leisure. God rests. Why? Why does he rest? Was he tired? He can be everywhere, everything all at once. Do those beings get tired? I don't think he was tired. Did he have somewhere to be? He rests. He rests. One of the things that I'm told about having children is, when I say that I'm told, this has been told to me recently in the absence of my good parenting through a blog or a magazine or something like that. As you get older, kids learn more from what you do than what you say. So the longer you go with kids, the more they just stop listening to what you're saying and learn through what you do. So if something's really important that you want to get across to your kids, I'm told, I've not managed to do it yet. It's a bit of a problem, if I'm being honest about it, being an example to your kids. But if something's really important and you want to project that to your kids, you've got to do it. You've got to model it. Now look what's going on here in the text. On the seventh day, God doesn't need to rest, but he does. He stops, and he models this idea of rest. And he models it, I think, because there's something really important about leisure and rest that we need to get. We need it. And the narrative in our contemporary culture is often that we don't really need it, but we need it. We need it from him. We need to rest in him. And the third thing, and this is the thing that I want us to get us to think about in this lovely moment of the creation story, is we're made to joy in the creation with him. Rest, according to this, I think, and then as the Bible would explain it, is a participatory thing. We do it with God, and that's something different, I think, for us to think about. God rested, and leisure, our idea of it is rooted in a divine example. It's about appreciating the fact that it is something that we are given. We didn't come up with it. Actually, we've not even earned it, even though it feels like that. It wasn't our idea. It flips the way that we might think about this completely on its head. And I think God's word would say, yeah, I came up with this and I'm modeling it to you so that you get it and that you share in it. If you get it, you'll share in it. The other thing that you'll learn as a parent is that, and I guess sometimes you'll learn this stuff after you've missed the chance to benefit from it, so I'm passing it on to some of the younger parents. One of the best things you get to do as a parent, one of the funnest things, one of the most treasured things is share your world with your kids. That moment where you get to show them Star Wars for the first time is, and then they go, whoa, that's fast. And yes, it's fast, isn't it? It's incredibly fast. Isn't that a nice moment? With creation, my belief is there's a bit of that going on with us. It's not stuff that if your kids just ran off and had all the fun on their own, that's fine. You want that for them. But part of the joy of being a parent is when you get to share that like blessed moment when it's like, oh, this is our thing together. I can show you this thing. It's part of the joy of the whole thing. I think that's what leisure is to God. When we share that with him, when we experience free time and leisure, and we do that knowing that God made it, it's an awesome, awesome thing. And so just as we sort of think about whether we're going to invest in that, would you rather, I've got two would you rathers today. Would you rather go to Barbados with, and I'm choosing Barbados, I've never been, I'm assuming it's a wonderful place to go. Someone who told you all the time, so you got one travel buddy, someone who told you all the time how much it cost and how much they deserve to be there, how much they'd earned it. You can go with them, or you can go with someone who was just there and appreciated the beauty of the place and wanted to share that with you. Who would you pick to embrace Barbados with? That's leisure, I think, for us. We can cheapen it and miss out on it if we think we've just earned it all. And of course, there's a reality to that, but it's way better than that. God wants to share that with us, so we should think about leisure. Another one, real quick. It changes, our concept of leisure changes when you realize it's a state of mind. It's not just about what we do, it's about who we're able to be, who we actually already are. Look in the text, God does something wonderful, kind of touched on it already. He stops working. It's a deliberate stop. That's what the story is saying to you. God stopped. I think it's one thing if we stop working. A lot of people tell me, and I share this, just when you're making chit-chat, people will say, yeah, I peak at about 10 o'clock. Think about when the peak of your working day is. Don't know when the peak of your working day is, but people say to me, yeah, I'm really productive about 10 o'clock. From about 11 o'clock, I'm petering out. I'm a bit on standby, but there's a small window of productivity where I'm absolutely on fire in an expanse of otherwise scatty thought. It makes sense, I think, that we stop work. We need to stop. It's understandable that we stop. It's understandable that we stop sometimes at 10 o'clock and go, do you know what, I've been productive and that's me done. Not going to be any more productive. But it doesn't make any sense when you think about it that God stops. Why does God stop? God is this incredibly creative, brilliant being. He's literally full. I feel really chuffed if I get like one good idea a week. Should we get an ice cream? I consider that a good idea. If I get one of those, I feel like I'm doing really well. God is just full of endless, brilliant ideas and the capacity, not just to have the ideas, but to create. That's what he is. He's a creative being, and yet the story of Genesis is God is that great God, and yet he stops. Even if I'm only good for that small window of half an hour of productivity in the day, if somebody pops into the office and asks me what I'm doing, the guilt hits me straight away. The rat race guilt, and I say, let me tell you, I've got a stack of things to do today. You might have that. Somebody pops around at home, postman delivers you a parcel. What are you doing today? Got loads to do today. You got Virgin River on it background or something like that. No, I've got loads, because you want to legitimize your existence. But in the big story of God, you don't legitimize his existence. The deliberate thing that he tells us is that he's just able to be. So if we believe in God, I think we do, we believe fundamentally that there is more to our identity than just what we're able to do, which is a really lovely thing. There's more to us than just how rich we can be or how much we can produce. It really, really matters to God, so much that he would model it to us who we are. And our leisure time is exactly the same. We appreciate the world that we live in, not just by what we're doing. That's not exactly what leisure is. There's more to it than that. It's wonderfully deeper than that. It's about who we are. It matters, I think, because the narrative of the world that we live in, what we will hear and what we will tell each other and tell ourselves, places such a high value on what we can produce or what we can afford. The value on that we place on that is massive today. That is what's around us in our lives. How much can you earn? How much can you produce? Talk to me about that. And it's so much so, I think, often what can happen is we forget who we actually are. We can forget who we were made to be. And what God says to us is that's what's really important. That's what you should remember in the rush of the world. That's what you should remember when you're only able to afford this much money to have this fun activity with your kids. It's not just about what you're doing. It's what you're able to be. It's a state of being, in one sense. Maybe you're saying, I still just want to go to Orlando, Disney World. I just want to do that. So do I, actually. John Milton says, thinking this through, the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. It's possible for us to have the most mediocre, maybe you've had one of these, the most mediocre leisure holiday on paper of your life. We've had a few of these, yet they're the best. My best holiday ever was with my mum and dad in what is a horrible caravan in Bournemouth. It was the best thing ever, somehow. Because I think leisure is not just where we are, what we do. God models it as being more than that. It's who we are. Jesus says to us, and this kind of coins that idea, he says, when you're thinking about the world and the kind of peace and relaxation you can experience, what you should know about my peace, when I give it to you, is it's not how the rest of the world would give peace to you. Last thing, how we can think of leisure as God made it. It changes for us when we see that it's an end in and of itself. I think one of the things that we're drawn to in this creation account, and God has done some incredible stuff so far. He's created first chapter of Genesis 1. He's created the cosmos. He's created meaning and life. And God would say, yeah, that's all good. It's all good stuff. And yet the day that he separates and exalts and makes holy, as you can see in the text, is the day where you just sit and rest with God in the wonder of it all. That's like the pinnacle of the story. God's done all this incredible stuff, flung the stars into space as we can try and understand it, created meaning, created humanity, created the storyline of the world, and yet the bit that he draws our attention to is this is the special day. The really special stuff is when you just get to kick back and bask in the wonder of it all. The really special stuff is where you see what I've done and you just trust me for all of that. As we've thought already, as leisure plays out in our lives, it's often just about keeping going. It's often just about distraction or a gap that we fill in the diary. And it can be really cool, but it's often with us. It's often a really fleshy human thing. It's often about us. Carnal is the word that I've got in my notes. It's about our needs and our human experience. But I think the Bible text, faith, gets us to think that there is a grander purpose to leisure than that. So there's a Catholic philosopher, just going to read a quote. It'd be really cool if I had it up, but I haven't got around to getting it up, so it's a bit of a long quote, but just sit over it. It's trying to explain how he sees leisure. And is something to think about, see if we can understand it like this. Leisure is a form of receptive openness, of contemplative celebration. It's not the same as idleness. Leisure is an attitude of the mind and a condition of the soul that fosters a capacity to perceive the reality of the world. Highfalutin stuff. It is in leisure that a man recollects himself, that he becomes aware of what is truly human in him. And then this is what he says, and it's in leisure that the worship of God takes place. Not exclusively in leisure, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that the leisure part of our lives, this is, at least as I understand it, when we're at leisure, when we're relaxing, when we're having fun, it can be not just passing the time of day, not just something on your calendar, not just something that you use as recovery. It can be about how awesome God is and how you feel about that. It can be worshipful. It can become a worshipful thing. If we appreciate it, I think that's what Piper's saying, with the right levels of appreciation, leisure can become a spiritual thing. It can become a transformative thing. It can be the end of the thing in itself. It can be, like, I think often when reflecting on this, when I've had moments where I've been out for a run and I've reflected on, like, oh, this is a really lovely run, I've just sort of dismissed it as, oh, that's quite a nice notion. But if I'm looking at that run as God put breath in my lungs, God gave me the idea that running was a good thing, God created the view that I've got, then I can enjoy it with him. And it shifts from just being a run, which, like, it's really cool, run, but I can enjoy it with him. It's kind of what the famous athlete Eric Liddell said, right? Eric Liddell was a Christian, competed in the Olympics many moons ago. And he, as an athlete, as a sportsman, existed in an environment that was focused on what you can earn, how much you can prove, a bit like the world we live in. But this was zoned in for him, in an environment focused on earning and achieving. But what he said, this is a famous quote, some of you will know it, I believe that God made me for a purpose. He wasn't just running because he was fast, although he was fast. He wasn't just running because he trained really hard. He would say, I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And then beautifully, what he says at the end is, and when I run, I feel his pleasure. That was his quote. He was at leisure, and yet he was basking in the wonder of God's creation. I think this might have been something that Paul had in mind when he coined words in 1 Corinthians 10:13. He says to us, so whatever you're doing, whether you eat or whether you drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. There can be good in all of it, is what he says to us. Lastly, really quickly, finishing up. I don't know if we could have the Mark 3 text up. Just to think through this fight that Jesus picks with leisure. And read through the Gospels at your own leisure. Quite proud of that. And see how Jesus keeps coming back to this fight. See how he keeps coming back to this subject of the Sabbath, how we spend our free time. And see how he's like a dog with a bone. And he says, I'm not going to let this go. I'm willing to die about this. So it's just a couple of really quick points about this, and then we finish. Another time, Jesus went into the synagogue. A man with a shriveled hand was there. So a man who was ill. And some of them, like the religious leaders, were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus. They were after him. And so they watched him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. Is he going to do a work on the Sabbath? That's what they're ready to hang him to dry for doing a work on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, stand up in front of everyone. And then Jesus asked them, and this is key, I think, for our understanding of Sabbath, how God is revealing it to us. Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save a life or to kill? Jesus was shutting them up with the truth of God. Brilliant. But they remained silent. Of course they did. He looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. And then he says to the man, stretch out your hand. He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began, on the back of that, to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. It doesn't drop the fight. It's not an idle story. It's not just another person that Jesus heals. It's somebody that he heals on the Sabbath, and he gets us to think loads more broadly about what on earth the Sabbath is about. Just a few points for you to just think about as we finish. Jesus fights to the death, probably using dramatic language to get you to listen, over the right understanding of what the Sabbath is. He makes this a line in the sand thing. He goes to the cross for what that means in some respects. So first thing, I think, as we're thinking about the introduction to leisure, even though we don't know it, even though we're just switching off and getting our breath back, it's a battleground. It identifies who we are, leisure. It marks us out. It connects us with the story of God. That's the first thing. It is a battleground, and we see it because Jesus picks the fight and stays the fight for it. Me scrolling through Cats, daft as it sounds, matters to Jesus. How I spend my free time, ultimately who I am and how I live, really, really, really matters to Jesus. Next thing we see, I think, and we see this in the eyes of the Pharisees, and it's a painful lesson for us when we think about our leisure time, and perhaps that we devalue it. We can be like the Pharisees. Part of the message of that story is, I think, it's really easy to miss the good thing that God's done in stubbornness or just in lifestyle. It's dead easy just to miss the amazing thing that God has done. And lastly, and beautifully, I think, as this person that was healed finds out and what that points us towards, to encounter him is to know that he is making all things good in his time. There is purpose, as he proves in all things. He can be worshipped in every little element of our lives if we're focused in on him. Leisure, I think, is not a wet subject. It's a really cool, interesting, critical subject, and I hope you listen along and reflect on your own life over the next few weeks.